So I wanted to do this little video for people that are suffering from health anxiety, pretty severe health anxiety, because I'm working with a lady at the moment, and about 3 months ago she got an illness, and the doctors couldn't really find anything wrong with her, and over the past 3 months she's been convincing herself that it's something deadly, basically convincing herself that she's gonna die, and convincing herself if she does this and that then she's gonna die, and she's put herself into such a state of fear and being in this fear for consistently for 3 months now, that she can barely sleep, she can barely eat. She's just a bundle of anxious energy, and her whole body is blocked up. And you know, through sort of hypnosis, it's really quite difficult at this beginning stage. It feels very uncomfortable because I'm asking her to be still, and when you're still, when you've spent months and months convincing your mind that something terrible is going to happen to you, putting yourself into an absolute state of fear, then you detach from the body and you block the body from undergoing its normal functions, from actually healing, and you manifest illness in your body. You create illness through those fear thoughts that you've been constantly giving the mind. So when you're in that state and then you're trying to go into stillness, which needs to happen, we need to reset the nervous system because it's been in the stress system for so long and it's deregulated, which means it's not in the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest, the digest. So you're not going to be able to heal, you're not going to be able to digest food properly, neither it's going to cause all sorts of physical issues. And that's the irony of anxiety a lot, and of health anxiety, that is often something that starts off as something little, and then we convince ourselves it's something more. We then create those problems or a lot more health issues. So the thing we're trying to avoid, we end up actually creating for ourselves. So then when you are sat in hypnosis to start with, those voices are even louder, so it's very uncomfortable. So one of the other techniques that I've actually given to her, whilst letting her know that you do need to be still, you do need to get back into this rest and relax nervous system, and that it's actually okay to be uncomfortable, that we've been programmed to believe that there's something wrong with being in the uncomfortable, that if we're uncomfortable we should always move away from it or deny it or numb it out. But that's the absolute opposite of what we should do, because growth happens in the uncomfortableness, and it's not going to go away just because we avoid it. In fact, it will likely get worse. But another technique that you can use if you are suffering from health anxiety and it's quite severe and your mind is constantly chattering in fear, telling yourself that bad things are going to happen, I want you to see that part of your mind as a small frightened child, because that is what it has become. If you have been spending, think about a small child. I mean, you might have a child yourself, but if not, just think if you had a small child and you spent weeks, months just telling that small child that it was gonna die if it did this or ate that or did that, just constantly pouring it into fear that anything it did was going to lead to something bad happening. Imagine how that child would be now. Imagine how its body would be. Imagine how it would respond. That is the mind. The mind becomes that frightened small child because we have told it things, fears, false experiences appearing real that are not really real, but the mind is then being convinced, it starts to believe it, and then it starts to block the body from doing what the body needs to do to be in vitality, to be in health. So see that part of the mind as a small child and know that you can observe that part of the mind, because often when we do become very anxious, we start to realise that we can hear what the mind is saying. So you're actually awakening to your own consciousness. You're awakening to the fact that you're a conscious being and you're not the mind, but you've programmed the mind. So you can see that mind as this small, frightened child. And then what you need to do is talk to the mind like it's that small, frightened child. What would you say to a child that had been spending months and months by some adult putting the fear of God into it? What would you say to that child to reassure it, to nurture it, to bring it back into balance so that it knew it was safe? You tell it was safe. You tell it was loved. You tell it it's got nothing to be scared of. You tell it that you've got this, that you will protect it. So you need to step in to that adult consciousness. See that part of you. See it's not really you. See it's now this wounded child, and give it the reassurance that you would do any child that was in that state of fear. And if you do that, it takes effort, but if you do that, you're going to start slowly changing that small child. That small child's going to start believing you. If you do that consistently, it's going to start being like, oh, I am safe. And you're going to be validating and proving that it's safe. And eventually it will start to change. And eventually that anxiety, that health anxiety, will start to disappear. Because when it comes to health anxiety, I'm talking about people that genuinely have been to the doctors, they've got symptoms, they've been to, and there's nothing they can find, and it is caused by anxiety, by us then looking online and convincing ourselves it's something that it's not. So yes, to see that part of you as that small child, reassure it, give it love, support, nurse it back into security, back into safety, back to feeling loved and safe, and your anxiety will start to dissolve. Okay.